All right, now President Cyril Ramaphosa's plans to industrialize hemp and cannabis has been described as just hot air, and that was according to dagga champion Myrtle Clarke in the Sunday Times this very past weekend. Now, the president aims to produce around 120,000 jobs, but of course, to tell us more about this, I'm joined now by dagga party lawyer Gareth Prince. And let's have this conversation, Gareth, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the South African morning. Now, of course, the president's speech has been described as more of hot air. What are your views based on what the president had promised during his past State of the Nation address speech?
If South Africa's future dagga industry is going to be sustainable at all, it has to be centered around dagga and not around hemp or medical cannabis, because these strain varieties have to be imported into South Africa, whereas dagga is drought resistant, it is climatized to our environment, and it is the plant that South African small-scale farmers have been growing and using for hundreds of years. So it is important that we work with what we have in order to get what we want. And therefore, it is important that, we're talking about 500,000 small-scale farmers. And if these farmers are brought into the legitimate fold, then that's 500,000 jobs that we have created. Not to speak of the hundreds of thousands of others that we can do, from building houses and making food and making clothes.
But to your understanding, was there enough consultation between the president and industry before his speech, so to make an informed announcement to the country, to make an announcement that brings more clarity on the how they will, of course, produce this 120,000 jobs with which the president promised under, of course, this industry? Do you think there was enough consultation?
Not at all. In terms of our lawmaking, if there is to be a new law within this country, there has to be adequate public participation in the conceptualization as well as the development of these new laws. And unfortunately, that did not happen in respect of the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill, as well as the Cannabis Master Plan. The cannabis community, the one group of people that these new laws are supposed to be serving, were completely left out of the loop. And the development and the conceptualization of these documents took place in the minds of bureaucrats alone. And the cannabis community were not consulted. And that is one of the major drawbacks. The fact that 3.5 years after the Constitutional Court judgment, there is still no legal source of dagga for the millions of people who can't grow it for themselves. And the fact that these people still run the risk of being arrested by the South African police for wanting to exercise a legitimate right.
So on one instance, we're hearing the president say one thing. On the other hand, we're still seeing more people getting arrested for, of course, growing their own cannabis. Let's talk a bit about the Cannabis Master Plan that you make mention of, Gareth. What does it look like, and how do you suggest it be implemented by the president?
The fact that this plan doesn't speak about dagga, that is its major drawback. They've got plans for industrial cannabis, which they call hemp, and then they've got plans for medical cannabis, which both of these industries are run by a very small group of people. People with money, people with resources, people with connection. But it leaves out of the loop the hundreds and thousands of people who were victimized and marginalized as a result of their association with this plant. And it seems the master plan has no plan for dagga. And we are saying that the industry is not going to be sustainable if you leave dagga out of the loop. Therefore, these small-scale farmers has to be brought into the picture, and there has to be meaningful consultation with these groups in order to see what their challenges are, what their needs are, and to ensure that these needs are met in the plan going forward. And as of yet, neither the master plan nor the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill speak to the needs of the indigenous, vulnerable, and marginalized dagga community.
Olga, I appreciate your time this morning, bringing some clarity and, of course, very strong worded warning there, I have to say, of course, to the presidency and, of course, this cannabis master plan, which, according to Gareth, does not necessarily include nor involve public participation, nor the small-scale farmers which are involved in it. Of course, Gareth Prince from the Dagga Party, lawyer, joining us there this morning to give us a glimpse of that perspective.